What if there were a key in each human being that could turn on or off our physical, mental, and even spiritual well-being? There's a growing group of people that say this exists. It's the atlas bone, the cradle that holds our heads above our spines. For a variety of reasons, this bone is out of place, pinching off our life force to one degree or another in the vast majority of the population, and it can have severe implications regarding the quality of our lives. What is the nature of the atlas prophylax work? Let's just lay the foundation of it.
It is correcting the atlas vertebra, the first cervical vertebra, which supports the skull. It's the pedestal, the saddle, and the work entails simply installing or correcting the C1. Not adjusting, we're actually putting it back into its correct position.
What I've read in the literature about this, I mean, this is all very new to me. There aren't that many practitioners, it sounds like, in the U.S. It's really just now coming in. Is that
That's
correct?
Right. That's right.
But you say in Europe it's fairly well saturated. Most countries have practitioners?
Well, I wouldn't say well saturated. I think there's about 100 trained practitioners there. In Switzerland, of course, there's a greater concentration. My father, as of 2 years ago, was the 24th practitioner trained. And since then, it's cumulatively been getting more popular. So we're up to about 100. You can find them, at least one in most of the European countries, but they're mostly concentrated in Switzerland and Germany and a bit in Austria. There was a big training there recently.
Okay, and now it's making its way to the United States.
Slowly,
What is this? What is such a breakthrough about this particular technology that has not been brought to light prior to this?
Well, there's several pioneers that have been working with the atlas. You know, this is not a new thing as far as the understanding that the atlas is vital for our well-being. So there's been a number of people who've developed techniques to work on the atlas, the Palmer-Blair method. There's NUCA, that's in New York, and there's a few other people doing this work. But what makes this different is a combination of the philosophy that the atlas, as designed by nature, is meant to fit in correctly in the right position for well-being, for total body balance. Also in combination of a specific tool that was invented by René Shumplet over many years of research and development that is very different than the tools used in the States to install or adjust the atlas. What makes this difference is that we use the word installation. It's not a neck crack. We don't use a special table. We don't rely on an activator or a kind of a quick
almost
percussive motion. The tool is very specific, and it has a pulsating motion on the end that allows a sustained pressure to actually float the atlas into its correct position with the proper guidance of the practitioner, and also because of the nature of the muscles that get very tense over time, it works within the muscle tissue. So we're first working through the muscle tissue, and then we finally start guiding the atlas into place once the muscles have released. So there is quite a bit of difference, but
so it is
a lot
an
with
installation.
It is an installation. We don't install, or we don't adjust. We don't, torque the neck in any such way.
So now let's start going back and build the base of understanding as to why, as I've read, virtually everybody has an atlas that is not in the correct position. How can this be? Why is this? If we're designed for it to fit, why is it not fitting to begin with?
Well, probably because it was never in to begin with. And in the Institute and through my experiences as a body worker, a lot of this has occurred in early childhood, when bones are not fully developed, when the underlining of the skull does not have the same topography and condyle structures under there to hold the atlas. It's developing, as we're in the early months of our being. So oftentimes it can come out in those early months, and especially if you had traumatic birthing, cesarean sections where they can sometimes pull the child out under the stressful environments of hospitals at times where people are rushed. Sometimes the care is not always there, and considering the fragility of the infant, and coupled with the fact that their muscles, they can't even hold their heads up. It's a very delicate situation. So I see a lot of luxation of the atlas caused by traumatic birthing and things that happen early on, and of course the falls and the mishandlings. So from the very get-go, it's out slightly.
Doesn't that just seem like a weird little aberration of nature, that you could be, that we're born with a certain skeletal structure that is, if not perfect, at least ideal for what we are.
Absolutely.
And then to have it flawed from birth on.
Right. Yeah, it's a question I have to answer quite a bit, and people always want to know, why is this atlas out? And there's so many ideas and theories and possibilities, and you have to take into account the history of our lives and various traumas that we've gone through. A lot of people that come to me are already in their 50s, who've had multiple car accidents, who can all relate to some experience where they've fallen, or they can relate to some moment where they felt like something certainly was not right.
Whiplash, that's a big one, isn't it?
Whiplash is huge,
Right.
But if you want to go more into the esoteric realm, which you probably do, and a lot of people here...
Yes, I do.
Well, I'll be honest with you, a lot of people that email me and write me have read an article written by Jean-Claude Cauvin, and he has been kind of a pioneer in this work. He also received the Atlas Prophylax work, and it made huge shifts with him. But he firmly believes that we have been manipulated. Our DNA, our genetics have been altered by intelligent life beings that have occupied or have used minerals and other resources on this planet to better their own habitat, and they've used Homo sapiens to do this. And so the idea is that by luxating the atlas, by throwing it out, by creating pressure on the brainstem and thus the nervous system, the complete organism is under pressure and therefore is more docile, more easily to be controlled, and gets caught in ruts,
Right.
Hard to pull out of,
That's exactly what one of the theories that I've read about this, which is interesting if you follow some of the work of many people out there, Zachariah Sitchin and others, that we're a genetically engineered species, in which case maybe just throw this little bit out and keep us a little more manageable or docile, like you said. Maybe has been by design if you're going to look to the esoteric for it.
Subservient.
But let's say that, and subservient. It worked, so here we are, and now we're waking up.
Yes.
And so let's talk about first some of the things that have happened by way of dysfunction to our lives and beings and our ability to perform as a result of having this thing out of whack.
Well, I see it on 3 levels. You have the physical discomforts and the pain that we obviously can experience pretty easily in our daily lives, and then we have the spiritual, and then you have the emotional. And people come to me for a variety of reasons. Some people come for physical release and relief, and some others are looking for spiritual clarity and something emotional that they feel is coming up in them, outside of this work. And then they hear about it and they get turned on, and then they hear about the article, and then they really start. So it's kind of like, people just either feel strongly about it or they completely tune it out. Physically, what happens to the body when the atlas is out of alignment, it immediately starts throwing off the balance of the body, is primarily in the hips. So you get a short leg. That's very common, and almost every chiropractor can confirm this. We have a short leg, which puts more pressure on that side of the body. In other words, more weight will be over time weighted on that side. So it will affect and disrupt the low back. It'll cause tension in the hips, and that will definitely translate into the shoulder areas. And the body has a way of just knowing when it is unstable. So it splints by contracting muscles. So
Right.
neck muscles get tight, shoulder muscles get tight, and you start seeing people walking like this and like this. The atlas that's dislocated can also throw the whole cranium forward, and also the weight of it, which is 10 to 14 pounds or so, is actually being pushed down. So we can actually go now into the spiritual realm of it. What is the organism when they're unable to look up comfortably and they feel a pressure or oppressive feeling on the back of the neck, and then the tension of the neck muscles and the shoulders? You're looking down a lot. So metaphorically, you're not looking in people's eyes. You're not looking up and out. You're not seeing the abundance that's coming in. You're more dealing with your daily troubles. You're feeling oppressed, in other words. And that's exactly how the manipulation of the C1, what it can cause in the organism. So it begins to break down over time, and it only is when people get a little older. But I'm not saying everyone, because I've treated children, I've treated 20-year-olds that already are feeling horrible. They already have problems with their low back and TMJ, temporal mandibular joint, that symptom where people are grinding their teeth, and which is typically an anxious neurological thing of releasing. People have mouth guards, and then the epidemic of migraine headaches.
I was going to ask you about that next.
And this is we're getting back into the physical realm, but that can wear down the spirit as well. So again, we can go into a spiritual aspect to this, where when you live with pain, you tend to lose trust in abundance, in the universe,
and each other even.
And each other, and that there is a light at the end of the tunnel. I mean, if you're afflicted by pain chronically, it's hard to know that things are in balance and things are flowing, with the universe, and that.
I totally understand what you're saying. So let's talk about some case examples that you've worked on. Some conditions that people have come in with, and some of the experiences they've had afterward, including, and we'll get back to this in a little bit, some of the not side effects, but reactions to it that happen as well. So let's, if you don't mind, launching into 2 or 3 cases that you found particularly interesting.
Well, the most recent one has been a woman that's had MS, multiple sclerosis, and she's, has a lot of the common symptoms of the shaking, and she's in her 50s, and she's had real trouble with her hearing as well, numbness, tinnitus, ringing in the ears. She walks with a cane. And, fate brought us together. She received the treatment, and within a week's time, after following up with her, the shaking had disappeared, and she doesn't walk with the cane. But aside from that, she was kind of a twitchy, nervous individual that was, has an anxious element to her, and here's someone who now does not shake, that does not need her cane, still is not 100% back to normal, but certainly feels so much more calmer. And that points directly to the neurological effect that increasing pressure on the brainstem due to a dislodged atlas creates. So, the MS individual, was touching, because she really did improve from it, and very quickly. This is atlas work is very quick.
And it's not something you do repeatedly either.
Is it? In this method, no. This methodology was designed to be a one-time visit with a follow-up a month later or some time later, just to recheck. But this is not something where we do baby installation or adjustments and then we take an X-ray and then recheck and then reposition and readjust and then have them come back a week later. And no, because the nature of the atlas, it is a stubborn bone. It's part of the earth element. It sometimes does not want to shift, and due to the history of the organism or the person, the muscles can be very